They call it war. They call it defense. They call it national interest. But beneath the flags, beneath the speeches, beneath the sound of marching boots, lies a truth so dark that even history books refuse to look it in the eye. Because when a nation decides to kill, it doesn't call it murder. It calls it policy. This is the story of how war became the most legal form of killing on Earth, and how the world learned to applaud it. The Geneva Conventions, 4 documents born out of the ashes of World War II. They promised to make war humane. They outlawed torture, banned the targeting of civilians, and gave prisoners of war the right to live. But the truth is, the Geneva Conventions were never designed to stop war. They were designed to regulate it, to give nations a moral mask to wear while committing the same atrocities they condemned their enemies for. It's like drawing rules for hell and pretending it makes the fire less real. The invasion of Iraq. America claimed Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. He didn't. What followed wasn't liberation, it was disintegration. Entire cities flattened. Hundreds of thousands of civilians dead. A report by Lancet Medical Journal estimated over 600,000 Iraqi deaths linked to the invasion. Children, families, people who never held a gun. But in the language of governments, it wasn't murder. It was collateral damage. And when journalists like Julian Assange exposed it, showing American helicopters laughing as they gunned down civilians, it wasn't the killers who were punished. It was the whistleblower. That's the first rule of legalized murder. Those who reveal it become the criminals. Let's go back to 1945, the final months of World War II. 2 atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Over 200,000 civilians vaporized. Entire generations vanished in seconds. Children melted into the walls of their homes. And yet, not a single U.S. official was tried for those acts. No tribunal, no judgment. Because when you win the war, you also win the right to write the laws. The Nuremberg trials punished Germans for targeting civilians, but when the Allies did it, it became necessary evil. That's the cruel paradox. The same act can be called a war crime or a victory, depending on who writes the history. Fast forward to today. In Gaza, the skies burn red again. Airstrikes flatten hospitals, schools, refugee camps. Civilians, men, women, and children, buried beneath the ruins. But the justification remains the same: self-defense. The Geneva Conventions say civilians must never be targeted. But what happens when you label every enemy as a human shield? Suddenly, every body becomes a loophole. And while the world argues about who started it, no one counts who ends up dead. Because counting them means acknowledging that war isn't about justice, it's about dominance. Even journalists documenting the horror become targets. Their cameras, threats. Their truths, dangerous. Behind every sanitized press release, there's a soldier with shaking hands and haunted eyes. One former U.S. Marine once confessed, "We called them hostiles, but they were just people, old men, kids, anyone who looked long enough at us." You stop seeing faces after a while. That's what war does. It trains empathy out of you. It rewires your brain to replace morality with mission. You stop asking why and start asking how. How to clear a street. How to survive another day. How to kill without feeling the weight of it. And when it's all over, they call you a hero. But no one tells you how to live with what you've done. How do you convince millions that killing is noble? Simple, you control the story. From Vietnam to Iraq, from Gaza to Ukraine, governments don't just wage wars on land. They wage wars on perception. They show selective footage. They rename attacks as strikes. They call civilian casualties regrettable incidents. The media becomes a weapon not to inform but to sanitize. To make people believe that every bomb is justice, every invasion is protection, every body count is a statistic. War becomes entertainment, a headline, a 2-minute clip between commercials. And while people argue on social media, more bodies quietly join the soil. The International Criminal Court, a symbol of global justice. But here's the irony. The world's most powerful nations aren't even bound by it. The US isn't a member. Neither is Russia. China? Not interested. Israel? refuses cooperation. The very nations most capable of committing war crimes are the ones standing outside the courtroom. They built the system, then stood above it. When smaller nations commit atrocities, they're condemned. When superpowers do it, it's classified. And so, justice becomes selective, a luxury reserved for the defeated. At the heart of every war lies a single idea: dehumanization. You can't bomb a village unless you stop seeing the people in it as human. Psychologists call it moral disengagement. It's how soldiers, politicians, and even citizens convince themselves that death is necessary, even righteous. The mind builds walls. They're terrorists. They started it. We had no choice. And slowly, killing becomes logical, necessary, even patriotic. When you strip away the uniforms, the languages, the borders, all wars share one thing: ordinary people killing ordinary people because someone powerful told them it was okay. There's another truth we rarely talk about: war is good business. Weapons companies thrive. Economies surge. Contracts multiply. Every missile launched is money earned. Every destroyed city is a rebuilding opportunity. And as long as war makes billionaires richer, peace will always be postponed. Because peace doesn't sell. Peace doesn't feed the military-industrial complex. The same nations preaching democracy abroad often fund dictatorships in secret, because stability isn't profitable, chaos is. So long as national interest means economic interest, wars will continue, polished, televised, and justified. Today, wars no longer begin with soldiers crossing borders. They begin with hashtags, with algorithms deciding which deaths deserve empathy and which don't. Social media has become the new battlefield, each side fighting not for land, but for narrative. And somewhere in the noise, truth dies quietly. But here's the chilling part: as artificial intelligence grows, nations are already experimenting with autonomous drones that can decide when to kill. No emotion, no hesitation, just cold, programmed logic. We've moved from human soldiers who can feel guilt to machines that can't feel anything at all. And when machines start killing legally, will anyone even call it murder anymore? If this video opened your eyes, remember, silence is complicity. What's your take? Can a nation commit murder and still call it justice? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for the next deep dive into the truths buried beneath history's headlines. Lastly, watch this next video. It will definitely blow your mind.